Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is part 11 of yet another inventory series, but wait. In the last episode, we took a slight divert from the inventory system itself and we went on to making some nice looking player stats. You can see down here in the bottom left. Structure progress bars, color coordinated icons. Showed you how to make the material and how to set up the widgets. We also made our player stats structure. In this episode, we are going to be implementing the player stats. So we will be making a function inside our player to reduce the stats, and we're going to be reading and writing through the player stats and updating our on-screen display. Without further ado, let's get to it. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to open up our game instance. Now I've decided to put my player stats on the game instance. Reason being is the game instance is the very first, or one of the very first blueprints that is opened when the game starts, and it is persistent throughout the game. So whether you change level, your character changes, no matter what happens within the game, this blueprint remains persistent until the moment you close the game. So it's a good place to put things that you want to be able to reference no matter what's happening in the game. I like to use this for things like player stats, save and load, and various other things. There are different ways of doing it, but this is how I prefer it. Also, by referencing this, you can reference this from wherever you like within Unreal without having to cast to the player, which can get quite expensive. Especially if you're doing something on a timer like we will be doing for this. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add our player stats variable. So we're going to call it player stats, and it's going to be of type player stat. And we're going to compile, and we're going to just give it some default values to start off with, because we need to be able to set it up. And this is where you would save and load the game, so your stats will be updated when you load into a new game. They'll start off at whatever you set here, but if you load a previous game, it'll be wherever your game progress was. So let's be nice and generous, give full stats. So I'm giving 100 to all of my stats. Apart from inventory weight, and I'm going to put the inventory weight to -1, and max inventory weight I'm going to leave it at 0. We will get onto that when we come to our weighted inventory. We won't be using those today. Okay, so now we do have our looking at our class settings. We do already have our API game instance interface here. If you don't, go ahead and make sure you add it. And I'll show you how to do that just to remind you. So we go to class settings, implemented interfaces, and you look for our game instance. Type in instance. And what did I call it? So let's do BPI. We go BPI game instance interface. So add that, make sure you compile it. At the moment it shows up with nothing on the left hand side because it's empty. And this is where we're going to do some of our work now. So we're going to go ahead to our blueprints folder, our interfaces folder. We're going to open up our game interface interact. Oh, sorry, interface game instance interface. So it's a bit of a mouthful. Okay, and in here we are going to put in a few Make sure I've got the right one open in my project. We're going to add a few functions. We've got 5 functions. First function, give player stats. We can have one output on this, and the output's going to be player stats. These are all very simple. And I'll type player stats as we've just made. Our next one is going to be set player stats. And this has one input, and it's of type player stats, and it's called player stats. Okay, the next one we're not going to be using right away, but we're going to add it here anyway, so let's go ahead and do it. And it's called update inventory weight. And that has an input of player stats. Input. Keep compiling it. Next one, almost identical. Update player stats. And again, it's an input of player stats. And the last one we're going to add to here is increase stat singular. So this is where we would increase a singular stat. And this one has 2 inputs. Now the stats that we will mostly increase are going to be health, thirst, and in our case health, thirst, hunger. But if you've got a game that uses potions and skills and stuff, you can, this is where you would also use that. So we're going to call it stat type. Cancel the auto state. And this is going to be en consumable type, because that's what tells us whether it's food, health, or drink. And we're going to add another one. We're going to call it value to add, and that's going to be of type float. Make sure you compile it. We can go ahead and close that. Now if we look in our game instance now you'll see them all here on the left hand side. The other area we need to pay some attention to in our interfaces is our HUD interface. We need to add a few more on that. So let's open up our BPI HUD interface. At the moment we've got display message, remove interactive text. We're going to add 2 more functions to here. First function is going to be update stats display, and update weight display. And update stats display has an input of player stats. Type player stats. Sorry, I'm on the right one. Yeah, the update weight and the update stats is exactly the same. We could theoretically use the same function to do both and split it out, but it would be a little bit more involved coding to tell us which stat and so on and so forth. There's different ways of doing it. So it's just easy in here. They're very lightweight. Just have a separate function. So we have our two new functions in here. Make sure you compile and save it. We can go ahead and close that. So let's look at the next thing we're going to do, and I think we will probably open up our player and work on him or her or it. So we open up our player character. Remember, that's in our blueprint. Character, YouTube character in my case. And we are going to make two functions in here. We have our move, our aim, our tracer. We're going to add two more functions. The first function is going to be called create player stats. And the next function is going to be called reduce player stats. So let's go ahead and do our create player stats first. And because we've just done our inventory, sorry, our game instance and HUD interfaces, we have all what we need available to us. So we're going to right click. I'm going to say get game instance. We don't even have to worry about what the name of it is. We know. And because we're using interfaces, we're not going to cast. So we're going to say give player stats message. It gives us our player stats. We're going to promote this to a local variable. I'm just going to call it lstat. Just to save on strings. We're going to come out of here. We're going to break this. No, we're not. We're going to set members in this. We don't need to break it. And the members we're going to set here are inventory weight and inventories out. We won't actually see the benefit of these right now, but we will later on. So drag in our component, and we would say inventory. Okay, inventory. We don't have them here. So let's go ahead and add them. So we're going to quickly go back to our component. Our inventory component. In our variables list, we're going to add inventory. Going to add two more variables. And it's going to be inventory weight of type float, and that's going to be in our inventory category. We're going to duplicate that, and we're going to say max inventory weight. We'll get rid of the underscore 0 at the end, and inventory weight, we can make them both instant editable. Okay, now we go. Now we've got that, we can go ahead and close our inventory again. In our here, we should have it now, so we can get inventory weight. Oh, not set. Get inventory weight and get max inventory weight. And we're simply going to put that. So basically, just every time we start the game, it makes sure whatever it's a save weight or set weight, it will make sure it updates that for us. And then we're going to get our game instance again. We could put a string across, but for neatness, let's just copy and paste this. And we're going to say set player states. Make sure it's a message. And we're going to join that to that. You possibly don't necessarily need this, but sometimes if you try to set members straight after something that's referenced through here, it doesn't like it. So we're better off changing that and then output it correct. Means it's a little happier. Okay, now the next one's a little more complex, but it's not that bad. It looks worse than it is. And this is the reduce player stats. So just like we did before, we're going to get our game instance. We're going to get our stats, give player stats. We're going to promote it to a local variable, call it lstats. We're going to break this time. And here we get a whole list of all of our stats. We're only interested in, at the moment, in health. So we're going to promote that to a local variable. And we're going to call it L health. Promote the hunger to a local variable. L hunger. And promote the thirst to a local variable. Make sure you're not using the max. Or it will not work and you'll be scratching your head for a long while. Why doesn't it work? So make sure you're on health, hunger, and thirst, not max health, max hunger, max thirst. Okay, to neaten things up, we can click on that, hide unconnected pins, and let's connect these up. By the way, if you're using an earlier version of 5.6, you will not see the little V here. So don't panic. It's just a difference in 5.6. It just means that this is a local variable, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And I recommend that people can use it, should use it. Okay, so first of all, we're going to deal with what happens with the health. Now, the way I'm going to set this one up, simplicity, but there could be more than one reason. If our hunger or our thirst gets less than 25%, 25 out of 100, or 25 units, so if you've got in your game where you can slowly increase your max health, then this doesn't change. As long as it gets down to 25 or less, it's going to start affecting your health. So we're going to drag in our L hunger. We're going to drag in our L thirst. And we're going to say, is this less than 25? You can set whatever number you like. I mean, I've just used 25. It seemed to work quite well. And we're going to just duplicate that. So Control D. Which doesn't always work for me, I don't know why. Okay. And then we're going to use an OR. So OR basically means exactly that. If this or this are false, this will fail. Or if this or this is true, this will pass. So it's an OR. Okay. Then we'll look at hunger first, and then look at second. Okay. And it will prioritize the pass rather than the fail. So we're going to add that to a branch. So if this is true, we're going to want to do something. So what I like to do with my health systems is I like to add some variables, and I like to call them reduction factors. So we're going to say health reduction factor, type boolean, type float. We're just going to duplicate this. We're going to name this one hunger. Get rid of the 0 at the end. Duplicate again. Rename this as thirst. And now the reason I like to do this, again, it makes your system more flexible. So that if something in your game allows you to reduce health or hunger or your stats slower, you can or faster, you can change these, and this will actually make the global effect. In your game settings, for example, if say on normal 1 speed and hard they reduce at a faster speed, or as you see in some games they actually give you the option to change your stats to slow, medium, or turn them off. You can just do that by changing these variables from your save and load. Now I'm going to set them, and I'm going to set them to relatively low amount. I'm set them to 0.1. Go ahead and make sure you set them. If we don't see the default value here, it means you haven't compiled the project. So we're going to get those. So we now got those all set up. So we're going to get our local health. We're going to get our local health or our health reduction factor. We're going to subtract our local health to here. Now we don't want our health to be able to go below 0, and we don't want it to go above whatever the max health is set at. So we get our local stats, we break it, we get our max health, what we're interested in. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in clamp float. And what the clamp does, it basically does that it actually will stop it reduce going below the minimum and above the maximum. So the minimum is going to be 0 and the maximum is going to be our max health. The reason we're doing this and not just putting in 100 is if, like I say, in your game you can change your max health on power-ups or skill points or whatever. This is always then kept up to date, ID and connected. And the next point, we're going to promote this to a local variable. We're going to call it L new health. Okay. So from the true here, we're going to go to this. And we're going to copy and paste that. And from the false, in other words, if it isn't below that, we're just going to set it to the original health that we started off at the beginning of the function. Now this function is going to be running the timer. It's going to be running like every 10th of a second. So this is going to update relatively quickly. Okay, we've got that to here. We're now going to get our L stats. We're going to drag off of here and we're going to say, at the bottom here, set members and player stats. We're going to join this to this. And likewise this to this. give ourselves a little bit of space because we've got some more working out to do. And we're going to choose health, hunger, and thirst. The health we've dealt with, so we now get our local new health and we connect it to that. And the other stats are relatively simple. They're both more or less the same. So what we can do is we can see it a little bit. We can copy all of this. We can paste it down here 2 times. We can connect this one to hunger, thirst. Give ourselves a little bit of space. It looks neat. Now the only thing we've got to do is make sure we change it. So instead, so this one's hunger. So this one would be L hunger and hunger reduction factor. I mean, they're all the same, so that reduction factor is not going to make a big difference. Make sure you click on this, and we're now changing that to hunger. You put your max hunger in there. Turn that off. And this last one is thirst. So thirst reduction factor. Max thirst. Depends. And that's that all connected. So now we've set them here, we want to make sure they are set inside our game instance. So get game instance. Set player stats. We're going to set the stats here. And then, very importantly, we want to update our UI. So in our function library, we made give HUD class. In our HUD interface, we made an update. Now make sure you get the right one, BPI HUD interface, update stats display. And then we connect our local player stats to that. And that's this function complete. So let's go ahead and implement them now. So we're going to go across to our event graph. And we are going to find our begin play. Let's get rid of the begin overlap. So first of all, we're going to do is we're going to find our create player stats. We're going to run that so that they're up to date. We're going to say get game instance. Give player stats. And this is, we're going to immediately just update our display straight away to make sure everything is the same. So we're going to say give HUD. We're going to do update weight display, even though we're not actually doing it at the moment. So, but we'll leave it in there ready for when we get to that point. And we're also going to do update player. Update stats display. Connect that to there. I'm having trouble with my lines today and my words. Try and make it a little bit neater. Okay. That's a little bit neat. I don't really like crossing, but nothing we can do about that. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start a timer. Now there's two sort of timers we can run functions for. We can either run set timer by function name or set timer by event name. We've made the function, so we're going to use set timer by function name. You also see here you've got timer by event. Okay, so we're going to use by function name. Now the name is very important. If you spell this incorrectly, it will not work. So what I often do, go in there, go rename, Control C to copy the name, Control V in there. You know then 100% you've got it correct. For my stats for demonstration, because it goes quick, I'm going to put it at 0.1, but you will add that to whatever suits your game and your timing in your game. Just stats could go down every second or whatever. But if you make that space too big, you make the your stats will go down obviously a lot slower. If you make these factors too big, you will often see a jerky jump. So make your factors smaller and update it more often to get a smoother looking progress bar. Okay, so that's going to do that. Make sure you've got looping on. You want it to continuously happen throughout the game. And that's it. If you click the once per frame and you have a supercomputer and it's running the game at 160 frames per second, well then things are going to happen quick. I would recommend for this to use time. Okay, so that's all we need to do in the player. And it will work in the player, but it won't actually do anything because we haven't implemented anything in there. So let's go ahead and do them. I think the first one to do would be in our game interface. Let me just double check on my so yeah, game instance. Let's double check in my game instance. Yes, we have a lot to do in here. So open up your game instance. First thing we could do is we're going to make a function. And we're going to call it increase player stat. Now we also have increase stat, but we're going to say increase player stat. Okay. Basically, this is what it's going to run. We could just use this and then have all the code strung out, but just for neatness, I'll put it inside a function. Again, it's up to you how you do it. So we're going to do the same input. We're going to say stat type, and that's of en underscore consumable type, and I'm going to call it stat value, and that's of type function, float, function on the brain. Okay, first thing we could do is we're going to promote this to a local variable, and we're going to call it L value. Then we're going to get this. I'm just hitting R now to give myself a reroute node to save me some grief. And from here we're going to say switch. And that gives us a list of what we're going to do. Obviously NA we're not going to bother with, we're only interested in food, zinc and health. So let's do them, they're all pretty well much the same. Just change a slightly different value. And we also have a little bit of a sanity check in there as well. Just to make sure we don't go over the top of our max setting. So we're going to bring in our player stats. I recommend doing it up here somewhere because we're going to copy and paste this. Drag out of here, break our player stats. First one we're going to do is hunger. So we'll find our hunger. We're going to get our player stats again, we'll put it over here. We're going to set members in our player stats. In this case, we're going to do hunger. So let's give ourselves some space for a minute. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our hunger and we're going to add the local value. And then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say, is this greater than our max hunger? And instead of doing a branch, we're going to drag off of here and we're going to say select. The selection, it gives us a choice. We're going to plug this in here. If it's false, go ahead and give it that. If it's true, we can give it our max hunger. This is going to get messy. There's not a lot we can do about this. Do your best with the lines to try and keep it as neat as possible. But it's quite difficult. You could promote it to another variable, but you'll have a lot of local variables then. So try and keep it as neat as you can. So basically what the select is doing is saying, if this is true, we're only going to set it to max hunger. You can't be more full than max. If it's false, we're going to set it to whatever that value is. So in other words, if you had 50 health, you added 25, it will set it to 75. If you had 80 health and you added 25 in it, it will only set it to whatever the max health is, which will be 100 in this case. Then we make sure we put this to the set members, and we can move this down, something like that. And what I'm going to do is we're going to copy all of that. And we're going to paste it a couple of times. Let's do one at a time so we don't get confused. It's going to get messy, which is why, like I say, I put it in the function and not left it out dangling in midair. So that's hunger. The next one is on the list is drink. So instead of hunger, we're going to go thirst. Instead of max hunger, it's going to be max thirst. We make sure in here we change this to thirst, and we get rid of our hunger. And that will be in our drink, and we can move that up accordingly. Again, copy. Now this is health. Now our health, I think it's the same. Yes, our health is the same. So our health, the top one, we're going to say, make sure our health is here, and our max health is here. And we make sure this says health. And turn off first. And we put this down here. Unfortunately, we've got a line going through that lot, but not a lot we can do. Okay, let's neaten this up. We can hide these. It also gives us an indication that we're doing it correct. So hunger, onto food, correct. Thirst, max thirst, onto drink, correct. Health, max health, onto health, correct. So everything should be That says health, that says thirst, that says hunger. Okay, so those 3 are done. I'm going to move this top one in line with these a little bit. And now we are going to say give hard class. And then we are going to say update stats display. We're going to join all 3 of these to here. So it runs up the top here. Our player stats is going to be our player stats, because that's what we've been working on inside this function. And that's this function complete. Now we can go ahead and implement it. And I'm just going to check we'll have implemented it. Okay. So you go to increase stat, double click it. Got that. Increase player stat. We can now connect these 2 up. That is done. Okay, now we're going to do update player stats, quite simple. We're going to set our stats. We can say give add class. We're going to say update display. Use the stats display and join that to that. Nice and simple. Update inventory widget. Sorry, inventory weight. Get that. Again, we set our stats. We give our HUD class. And we update weight. Because we're updating inventory weight. And set player stats is easy. Simply just do that. And give player stats, also nice and easy. We simply drag that into there. So that's this all taken care of inside our game instance. So we've done our player, we've done our game instance. Next one to look at is our HUD. So let me just double check on my reference project. Go to our blueprints folder, core, HUD class. We're going to open that up. Okay, and inside here we've got all of our stuff like text. You can go ahead and close everything other than event script, event class. So in here, we don't need to add any more functions. We're just going to use the new ones we've done. So let's start with first one in the list we're not using at the moment because we can't. Second one, event update stats display. We are going to do that. We're going to get our HUD UI reference, which is right at the bottom here. We're going to get our player stats widget, get WPT player stats. If you wonder where that's coming from, that's here. because we made sure it was a variable. We're going to get that. And I believe we made this last time, but let's just check. We'll soon find out. We're going to say update. Okay, no, we didn't make that. Okay, so we want to go into our player stats. We can get it from here. We can edit this. We need to make ourselves a function. So we're going to add a function. So inside of our player stats widget, which is this one, in our graph, we're going to make a function. I forgot to do that last time, my apologies. We're just going to call this update player stats. Can have a single input of player stats. And it's going to be player stats. We're going to break this because we need to know what the originals are so that we can set them. So this goes ahead and basically changes the percentage within our progress bars. So quite easy. We're going to divide health by max health, divide hunger by max hunger, divide thirst by max thirst, and don't worry about the weight. Now the reason we divide it is if we divide a small number by a large number, you always get between 0 and 1. A small number, so we divide a smaller number by a larger number. In other words, health, even if it's 100, top health, you divide it by max health of 100, you're going to get 1. If it's 50 health, you divide 50 by 100, you're going to get 0.5. The reason for that is we need between 0 and 1 inside our percentage bars. So be careful, make sure you get the right one. So the first one we're dealing with health, so we're going to bring in our health circular bar. Again, if we don't see them here, we'll make sure you set these as a variable. And we're just going to come up with here and say set percent, which is a function we made when we made those. Doing that in there, that in there. And basically we go ahead and do the other three. So the next one on this is going to be hunger. Set percent. Value or the percentage is going to be percentage. And then the last one is going to be health. Sorry, not health, thirst. So just make sure you've got them correct. So health is going to the health, hunger is going to the hunger, and the thirst is now going to the thirst. You should be wondering why when you eat something, your health is going up, or you drink something, your hunger is going up, or something. It will go a bit wrong. And so that's all we've got to do on there. So now we've done that, we can go back to our HUD class. Now we can say set player Why am I not seeing it? Make sure it compiles. Oh, update player stats. By using the right terminology. Update. Player. Are we getting it? Why am I not getting it? So I'm just doing a quick sanity check for my own personal thing. Oh, okay. That's exactly why. Go back to my player stats. I've spelt it incorrectly. I can't find it. I put UGate instead of update. Now we should be able to get updates. Giving me update player stats, and it just comes under call function, not under a class or the interface. Sorry about that, but then I like to show you that we can all make mistakes, and simple spelling mistake can throw you into a bit of a loop, going, why isn't it working, or why can't I find it? And that's exactly what happened here for me. So we've done our event update stats display, and I think that's all we need to do. All the rest are handled with. We could go ahead and make these a bit neater and put them into groups, but we'll look at that at a later date. And I believe now this should work. So if we go ahead and play it, first thing we should see is, if you look at our HUD here, our designer, our stats here are on 50%. So because we've set them in the game instance at 100, first thing you should see is when we play the game that they go to 100, and they don't. Okay, so let me find out why. Bear with me just a moment, I'll have a quick look and I'll come straight back. Okay, I think I figured out where the problem is. Go back to your widget circular progress bar. We have here set percent, and we've called it percent. We're using percent value, which is not the correct one. So we can drag off here and say percent, get percent. This comes from the function. That should be the problem. So let's go ahead and play again. Move the breakpoint from testing. There you go. You see straight away our health bars are full and our hunger and thirst are slowly depreciating. So our function's working nicely. And now what we have to do is, if at the moment we drink something, for example, it allows us to drink. We don't really see these health bars, but it hasn't really increased our health. They're still going down. So we need to now make sure that when we use something, we need to increase our stat. So that is done on our main inventory UI. Go to game UI, main inventory UI, and it's on click to use button, so it's done here. Okay, so at the moment we're just moving the item, we're refreshing it. And what we need to do is tell it to actually update the relevant stat. So I'm just quickly bringing up my reference for that. Okay. So this is quite nice and easy. Dragging our item. We're going to break our item. We're going to, from our data asset, we're going to get the item value. And we're also going to get our consumable type. Okay. You can go ahead and hide the unconnected. Then we're going to say get game instance. And now we're going to move this to one side and break it. We're going to say increase that into there. Consumable type goes to there, and item value goes to here. One more thing I'm going to do, up to you whether you want to do this, is I'm going to go into my HUD class and go to the begin play part where we create the widget. And I'm going to set this Z order to 5 so that when I've got my inventory open, I can still see the PB bars so that I can show you that it's working. So if you don't want to, that's up to you. Excuse me. So now if we click on play, pick up a drink, pick up first aid kit, pick up a couple of donuts, going to run around a little bit. I want our health to get down as well, so we're going to start damaging our health. I'll put something to damage our health, but we can wait. So now if we click on tab, we see that we can see these above them. So if I click on donut and say eat one, you see that's gone up to a small amount. Click on a drink, eat the drink, that's gone up, and they immediately start decreasing again. So I'm pretty confident the health will work because it's using the same function. So rather than make you sit and wait, I'm just going to pause it until the health starts to reduce, and then get back to show you that that is also working. Okay, as you can see now, with health has considerably dropped. We're out of food, we're out of water. So let's eat a couple of donuts. You see our food is increasing nicely. One more to fill us up. But the health is still dropping because we're out of water. So let's drink something, and you should see our health will stop decreasing, but it will not improve. You see now it's no longer decreasing. And then we can take a first aid kit. We can use a first aid kit and increase our health. We don't necessarily have enough, so let's go and grab another one. Like I say, I've got my stats to decrease fairly quickly. So you can either reduce the cycle time in the function, or you can reduce the amount that they reduce by in our player character. And I'll go ahead and just show you that very quickly where that is, but we can see now our stats are all working lovely. If we go to our character, these reduction factors, you can reduce these 0.05 or 0.01, whatever you want, make it smaller. That I would say is probably the best place to do it because it will keep it smoother. If you reduce the time, you'll end up with bigger jumps, bonk, bonk, and yes, it will reduce it slower, but it may not look so smooth, but at least this way it looks a little bit smoother. Either way, it will work. So you can either do it here by changing the reduction factor, or, which I would recommend, by changing reduction factor, or you can change the time here by making this a bigger time. So instead of 0.1, 0.2, it'll be half the time. So basically this will run every 0.2 of a second and then it will change it, 0.2 a second and it will change it, 0.2 a second and change it. Whereas at the moment we've got it 0.1 of a second, every 10th of a second. Either way will work just nicely. Okay, this has gone on for over an hour. I figured it might be a long one because there's quite a lot of coding. We're going to end it here. Thank you for watching and thank you for staying with me. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends. Have a look at my Patreon if you consider helping me out there, or buying me a coffee if you appreciate what I do. In the next one, we're going to start going back. We'll go back to our inventory system, and we're going to add things like stacking. We're going to start on the stacking. So I will see you in the next one. Bye.